Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to talk about are homeschool kids smarter than public school kids? We'll really kind of break down what is really being asked within that question. We'll cover that in this video. There's really 5 things we want to look at and trying to, break this question down. And one is like the test taking that people would often use to say one group's smarter than another. 2, the academic performance in like the classroom. Whether it's a homeschool classroom or school setting, the work you're actually doing in that setting, we want to look at that. 3, we want to see, are these really good measures for intelligence? So we'll be having to have a little conversation about that. And then what are the factors that are going on in the homeschool? What are the factors in the public school that are contributing to the level of success or lack of success in each of those environments? We're going to be covering all of that in this video. So test taking. Standardized test taking is an aspect of education measurements. They have validity and there's reliability in them. They do take a picture of one aspect to determine academic abilities and potential to be successful in an academic arena. It's one measure, and there are a lot of different academic tests to take. There are SAT type tests, and there's achievement tests, and personality tests, and like there's tests for just about everything, right? There are standardized norm tests that kids take to find out whether they qualify for special education or not. All of these tests, homeschoolers do really, really well on. Right? Some of the data is on these standardized type tests, such as the SAT and achievement tests, IOAs, and those kind of tests. They score 15 to 30% higher than public school kids. And that's been consistent over time. Another one has shown that they will achieve like an 86 percentile on specific course standardized tests, while public school kids typically do about 50% percentile. Again, these are like norm kind of tests. One picture, one snapshot, but they do very well on those. What about other measurements? So when you're in a public school, the classwork that you do, the papers that you write, the tests you take within the classroom setting to show your knowledge and all the projects that you do. Well, homeschools, they measure things a little bit differently. They don't always do the traditional grading as compared to other people in the classroom, right? That's a little bit different. Yet the quality of the work, when homeschoolers submit portfolio type assessments and these things to colleges and even sometimes for competitions, they do very well. The work that they do, and one of the easy measures are math type work and writing. They do very well on these in competitions and other areas. When they submit these for college applications, they consistently score well. So they're showing that it's not just about taking the tests, the actual work production that they do, the quality of that usually is very good. Now, we could get into a whole huge video just on, is that really good measures of intelligence? And like many of the answers for this, well, yes and no. This maybe not be complete. In other words, they measure some academic skills and maybe your ability to do well in an academic setting, those kind of things, but they don't necessarily measure always creativity, problem-solving ability, musical talents, and these other things that sometimes go into measuring intelligence. In fact, there's a book by Harold Gardner, I think it might be. He's the one who kind of started this whole idea of multiple intelligences. And we're getting better at understanding what those are and measuring those so that we get a better picture of what a student's real skill set is. When we're talking about smartness now, we usually are talking about academic ability on a classroom type setting and tests and things like that. Just because students perform well on test taking and classroom performance doesn't necessarily mean they are smarter, though. This is where we kind of get into, why do homeschoolers perform better? Well, we want to look at homeschool environment and private or public school environment. Homeschoolers, small classes, right? Very handful of people, very individualized instruction. There's a lot less distractions, a lot less issues with other student and social interactions, and some of those potential stressors that reduce performance when kids sometimes have to go to public school and they have a lot of social anxiety and challenges within that setting. Bigger classes, bigger classroom, more distractions, more social interactions that may not be related to the academics. All of those things are going to factor in how well somebody in the public school will perform. And they will tend to dampen it. While in a homeschool, you also have the flexibility to create the curriculum more aligned with your students' goals and objectives and interests, so their motivational factor. So between the individualized aspect of it, the smaller distractibilities, all those outside things that are influencing that, all those things are much better controlled in a homeschool setting. So just think about going into a public school, particularly a large one, maybe an inner city school, and think about what's going on within that school as a student comes in, right? So many schools today, you start out by walking through metal detectors. You have armed guards in many schools. You have all these security issues that people know about. You have student cliques and groups, and they don't always get along well with each other, and you're trying to fit in and find your own. All those social aspects of large schools, and the bigger the school, the more those play in. All those really can hinder some kids finding their way because they are having a hard time fitting in. And the stresses associated with all that really impact their ability to perform well. So every one of those things are going to help determine how well students do in their measures of this smartness. All right, so let me kind of show you how this played out. Again, I'm going to talk about from own personal experiences, and I've said in some other videos, the programs I ran within public school was very homeschool oriented. In other words, I had a space that was typically off and out of the way. Sometimes that was controversial in and of itself, but the students and we as a staff liked it for a whole lot of reasons. And one of those was it did kind of make us feel like we could create our own little school. All right. So when students came to me, boom, now we're physically out of the way. In our classroom, we could set up we had tables, we had workspaces, stations, and some of them I had office spaces where they could go to work by themselves. Small numbers, very individualized. Kids were coming in totally different places. Common factor was that they would often come in with a lot of anxiety, limiting beliefs, decisions they've made about their ability to perform and function in school. So one student in particular, very sweet girl, she was smart. She had the intellectual skills, but highly anxious. And that anxiety was keeping her from attending both physically and even when she was there emotionally and intellectually. Coming into this environment that was more nurturing, one-on-one, we could foster her curiosity. We could break down some of those limiting beliefs, focus on that mindset, which is what I do and what I did. And we began to break those barriers down. Her anxiety went down. She began to improve better, both not only the grades in the school, but standardized tests, all those things. Her social interactions began to improve. She actually developed a very close friend with somebody who was in that same program that we were running. Her mom even said that we introduced whole new levels of learning and curiosity in volumes. By the time she's getting ready to go to college, she was doing so well on tests and those other things. She got into a college with a 7% acceptance rate, one of the top colleges in the country. In large part because we were able to nurture all of those things like you would in a homeschool. I encourage you to subscribe to our channel and check out the other videos that we have available. We're getting more added all the time. Also, I would encourage you to register for our free webinar, Emotional Hygiene. And in that, we're going to cover a whole lot of these kind of topics about managing your emotions, how that factors in. So register for that. Check that out today, and I'll see you in that next video.